Agrawal, we are at the India International Center, so we have this 3-day conference. It's a workshop kind of thing. It's about the open ecosystem, data ecosystem. So we have Professor Vignesh. He's with the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. So, sir, if you could tell us about this session, sir.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Views are personal. I spoke about the use of open data. If you look at, say, for example, IRCTC, which gave away the data, a lot of data related to location of the railway stations, kind of trains that are running, and then overall how many people are traveling in it. So if you see this, there are a lot of startups of making use of this data, delivering services to people. Suppose you're moving from here to Mumbai in train. If you want to get biryani in a particular location, you can place an order in app, you will get it. Okay, the startups are able to come into this business because this particular data is shared with people. So similarly, the Indian government has access to a lot more data. It is making a lot of efforts to keep the data sets available
Through the NIC platform.
through NIC platform. There's open data platforms are available, which is already sharing the data. So what happens is there is a likelihood over a period of time that a lot more startups will look at this particular data, come up with the business models surrounding it. So people like you and me should be able to get certain services or certain products through this particular startups. It results in a lot more revenue generation and employment opportunities and everything. Anyway, data is available. If you are able to open it up for people to make use of it, there is a possibility of employment opportunity. There is a lot more economic output that comes out of it.
And this is like going to be across India, all over all cities.
It's all the cities. State government has a lot of data. Government agencies have a lot of data. Central government has a lot of data. It also collects data in various domains. So all this data can be kept open. Some of the data sets are already open. But a lot more efforts are required in keeping that updated and make it easily accessible to people. And that's the idea behind this particular conference.
Okay, thank you, sir, and we hope to catch up with you again, maybe at IIT.
Oh,
That'll be nice meeting you, sir. Thank you very much. This is Sanjay Agrawal.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, friends. This is Sanjay Agrawal. I'm with Mr. Jadhav. He's from CABI, and he's the digital manager. So he's here today at the Indian International Center. There's a conference which is being held for 3 days, and this is on open data ecosystem. So if you could introduce yourself and talk about this, what has happened today, sir.
Sure. So, as you said, that I'm Arun Jadhav, and I work with CABI. CABI stands for Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International, and we are headquartered in UK, and our South Asia office is in Pusa, Delhi. And I was a speaker and more about presenting our work with the wider audience around fair and open data. So we are working on a framework called Fair Process Framework, which we have generated through collecting a lot of evidence from different projects. And we wanted to test this framework or socialize this framework with wider audience and see their reactions. So yes, so it was really useful for us to gain more understanding or insights from different presenters and participants as well. And hopefully we'll try to capture all these insights to our framework and make it more actionable going forward.
All right, and we also want to know, now India, we are moving ahead in the world rankings, and then we had the Chandrayaan, then we had this other launch, the lunar one also. So how does data, when we're talking about data, so it essentially is every equipment which is being sent to the solar, to the orbits. So
Yeah.
they will also, there's a risk of data, any stealing of data there?
So it's like, at least in our projects, whatever we say is, if the data has some sensitive information, it's better to get rid of the data once you have the necessary information, whatever is needed for the project. So then it's like you don't have to worry about any GDPR or personal data protection bill because you're not dealing with sensitive data. So whatever data is being collected through different devices, if it has any personal information, ensure that it's been discarded once the use has been, you can say, achieved from that particular use case. That is what we say.
Yeah, I think a very valuable point Mr. Jadhav has made, that anything which is not going to be relevant, so and which is relevant has been kept in our safe, our lockers.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir, and hope to see you in the next 2 days. More deliberations will take place. Thank you, Sanjay Agrawal, signing off. Thank you, sir.
Trying to work with the providers of the infrastructure and tools, but also think about the administrative burdens that researchers might be facing and the hurdles that they might be facing when they're trying to comply with these policies. And we know that researchers often don't feel completely supported when they're trying to comply with these policies. So I think it was a really interesting initiative. The final one I wanted to mention was the Netherlands collaboration that we embarked upon in the Netherlands with their consortium. It's a national agreement, and it goes beyond the simple sort of commercial reading and publishing agreement to think about open science holistically. And in that agreement, there are absolutely open research data components where we're using the tools and solutions that we have to help institutions monitor, track, curate, and make visible the research data that they own. So hopefully that gives you a very quick perspective on how collaborative opportunities can arise to really put research data policies into practice. So instead of them simply coming down from on high, we actually have the research community working together to ensure that these policies really work in practice and we get to the goals of open research data and data sharing that we've been talking about today. So, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today.
Thank you, Victoria. Victoria actually took us through various policies and initiatives which various countries have taken around research data. Some of them are pretty exciting. I mean, and they're very progressive in nature, which is a very, very good beginning. But you're very right in saying that ultimately we need to be really putting a lot of effort on the ground with respect to these things. I would also like to compliment you and your organization elsewhere for trying to link it with a publication. I think that is one way of kind of creating a motivation for this thing. And I always loved your concept of this data journal. I think that is something perhaps more awareness has to be created around this. This can really bring a lot of data to the fore. And I do agree that to put all those things on a sustained basis, you really need policy, which is many countries have done. You need incentives, and you also need an underlying infrastructure with appropriate contracts where we could run these kind of things on a sustained and a long-term basis. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I think before we conclude, let me now open it to questions. Yes, sir. It would be nice if you all can introduce yourself and then ask questions.
I'm Satyanarayan from Informatics India Limited, Bangalore. I have a question for you, ma'am. You mentioned in your beginning part of the talk that elsewhere supports PM Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat. I'm not able to understand how, because in our general understanding, what Atmanirbhar Bharat means, it is self-reliant Bharat. Now, Indian scientists significantly publish articles in elsewhere journals. And what they have created out of research, they pay you to import it back. So, if that is the thing, how does your statement justify unless you publish the journal in India and publish their article in India under your brand and copyright from India and make it available largely at an average price of what an Indian journal charge? Then only I can say you are supporting Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat. Otherwise, I don't know how do you justify your statement.
Okay, no, I understand that. I appreciate the question. Can people hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few different components there that I would respond to. So, at a high level, when we're talking about that greater self-reliance, I think it relates to one of the other slides that I mentioned, which is that we would be working to support India in terms of its academic clout on the global stage. So in terms of the volumes that it produces, the fact that it surpassed the UK in terms of how much research it's producing each year now, and in terms of its quality. So its WCI is now above 1. I think those are absolutely amazing stats coming from India, and that, to me, would speak to the goal of greater self-reliance in terms of showing India's clout on the world stage in relation to R&D, having put, some gone to the moon and back. I think that is a good example of what's happening there. In terms of the other points that you raise, so I mean, we do work on capacity building. We are embarking on projects, for instance, translations of, for instance, the journal we have, The Lancet, into local languages. So we are looking at what we can do to support on the ground in India, to support Indian researchers at more of that local level. In terms of our pricing, if you're talking about things like open access, obviously if people are publishing on the subscription model, then there is no charge to publish with us. The tools that I've mentioned in relation to research data sharing, many of those are free to use. But if you're talking about things like open access and article publishing charges, then yes, we do understand that there are equity challenges around how you can publish and make your research article open access. I would say on the research data side that I've been talking about, I don't think there's any real barrier. But on the open access side, I would say that we are attempting to solve that via principally agreements where we can flex and ensure that we're coming up with a sustainable model that meets both sides. We do have a system of waivers, but we are also now looking at a pilot to think about purchasing a country's purchasing power and how much they can actually afford and think about equity in terms of purchasing power parity. So that's a pilot that I hope would come to fruition, that we will publicise in the next few months. So I hope that I've galloped through a few of the different points that you raised, but absolutely it is our goal to support Indian self-reliance. We could continue the debate though on where we agree and disagree on that.
Not very convincing.
Okay, I think we could continue your discussion of these things. So any other questions, please? Yes, sir. Mic to the sir.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
You referred about hacking. In China, we have almost thousands and million times of hacking our Indian ministries and defense and PMO. And they have 5-year course for hacking. In India, we don't have this type of course in any of the institutions. Second, you talked about at the end of your presentation, that's called a computing, and that's called advanced 1,000 times will be quantum physics and quantum computing. So where we have reached in this situation, we don't have a semiconductor or chips, or we are dependent on other parts of the world.
Yes, sir. So first question is hacking. There are, it is not that everyday Indian sites are being hacked. I am not in government now, but that is not a correct statement, sir. Yes, there is been a hacking incidences, but that's there across the globe. In every country these things happen. As far as hacking is concerned, there are now a lot of certificate courses, there are a lot of short-term courses which people can get courses for being a certified ethical hacker. We have also opened up, government has also opened up National Forensic University in Gujarat, wherein the formal degree on these particular things have been given. And a lot of IITs also are now giving this, the dual degree kind of a thing, where you have a degree, let's say BTech in computer science plus cyber security, BTech plus artificial intelligence, BTech plus some of the humanities subjects also into this. So these things have now begun to happen. In fact, I was in the board of IIIT and they have many such courses of these kinds. So this has now happened to begin. But in terms of certificate courses, this has been there for quite some time.
In comparison to China.
Sir, China... So there is no question. First of all, China, no official set of information. It is all hearsay. We say had these things. So there is no information. But all I am trying to say that we definitely have, I should not say, but we definitely have this awareness in our computer science community saying that security is one good domain and people should really get themselves skilled and so on. Therefore, there is a lot of demand for people who are skilled in these kind of branches. And as I think with AI is coming and will take up the routine task of coding and all, people are definitely going to go in towards these fields. So there has been an increasing trend, but it definitely takes time. But in the community, among the engineers, the significance of this is definitely very much appreciated.
What about quantum?
quantum computing is now beginning center for us. The CDAC have started, have a project called, along with Department of Science and Technology, what is it called, Alka? That they have a complete program as DST and Ministry of Information Technology on a complete quantum computing, long 5-7 years, where institutes like Indian Institute of Science and many researchers will be given a quantum computers, which is in the process of being built by CDAC, who used to do their mainframes and all. So the program, the government is there for last 2 years now and is kind of taking up. So there is a part in that direction. And also regarding these chips and all, in the last 1.5 years or so, government has taken a lot of initiative of getting these chip manufacturers within India, and I am sure soon we'll have, there has been a lot of development as far as that aspect is concerned, of getting these manufactured in India.
But we don't have to, we have to borrow from abroad.
No, but these companies are coming and building in our places, and this is how things happen, then we learn, and tomorrow, and I also heard people like Tata and all also are opening up facilities, even Reliance, to do it. But if you look at the history, mostly it happens that way. First off, you learn from the experts, and all the time you build national capacity. So that's how it is. Any other questions, please?
Can I ask, ma'am? I'm joined late actually. We were supposed to come early. So my question one is to Victoria, ma'am. We want to know more about your company, your organization. So if you could tell us, we are late entrants, so I don't know, you must have briefed. And secondly, we were attending a G20 event.
Where introduce yourself?
I'm
SanjayAgrawal.
I work in media, so my media friends.
Okay.
So we were doing some other coverages, and we just got in. Yeah, so we were attending a G20 summit, which was held in Gurgaon, where the IT minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, had come, and that topic was cyber security in the age of AI and metaverse. So I was just thinking, how is our ecosystem, and what you people can tell us more about that, in today's context.
I think this is a very wide topic.
No, small
and,
briefing, just small.
And also our context has been more of data sharing
Yes.
and open data and all those things. But in one line, she comes from a company called Elsewhere, which is known to everyone. I think she doesn't need more introduction. And they're also doing a lot of work as well as this is concerned. But in the interest of time, let me or you like to answer on cybersecurity and all? No, please, in case you would wish to. Go ahead.
Please.
In terms of metaverse, it's typically driven by a private company. Augmented reality and virtual reality, we are slightly lagging behind in terms of access to devices. We need to have better devices and better content in order to enjoy the benefits of the metaverse or augmented reality based platforms. We are slightly all over the world. The gap between the expectations of the metaverse and how it is being actually used, there's a wide gap. And Facebook and our companies are hoping that this gap will be bridged over a period of time, but we do not know where it is going.
Thank you.
Can I add just briefly? I do think it is important. We have spoken a lot about privacy today. I think cybersecurity is another piece to this. So as much as we talk about open science and open research-based practices, that responsibility and that balance in terms of how we deal with the privacy factor and how we deal with cybersecurity factor is something that is lost, I think, on probably everybody as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Particularly if you are storing data on behalf of citizens, you are storing the IPR of different people who have done. It is an onus and responsibility on the people who are storing this data to keep enough security checks in place, and that is what that means, various layers of security, cyber security you have to put in. Also be sensitive about the privacy of those things. So this is a lot of responsibility in any data infrastructure we make. These are very, very important components, and a lot of focus is given.
Thank you.
Just small point.
Yeah.
Since you are in...
Can we give opportunity to others,
Yeah,
sir? Yeah. Any other questions, please? As I can come back. Yes, please.
I think you have to wind up.
Yes.
I'd like to thank.
I think the last question maybe, and then
Please
we
ask.
can-
Please ask.
In fact, we have Professor Vigneswara.
Yeah.
So please wind up.
Yeah, I think let me just ask you.
You talked about dark web and how researchers can be benefited data from the dark web.
Very good question. Yes, Professor.
Right, I do not know. Okay, it's okay. You cannot quote me. Suppose you are doing a survey about survey about maybe CEOs in the country. You are looking for a list of CEOs. You go to no place, pay some money, get a database of CEOs, and send emails to them. Okay, that's one way of using. Another way of using is looking at the ethics behind it, and who are the people are involved, why are they involved, okay, what is the revenue model behind it. Those kind of questions you can look at it. That also from the researcher perspective you can do that.
I want to include you in the event that is going to come now, the cultural program. So I just like to thank all the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Join us for the culture.
Metadata standards, to align on those standards, and think about education and training of researchers for how they should be sharing their data. So I think it's a really interesting example of trying to actually put a policy into practice in a collaborative way that's trying to work with the providers